This is Treks to Nowhere. Hello everyone and welcome back. So in a change of pace from my typical motorcycling and adventuring content, I wanted to share with you all some insights and some lessons learned from the past year or so as I've tried to go through and put together a collection of stories for publication. Now, if you follow the channel at all, you know I am trying to effectively publish a manuscript of all of my adventures that I've been on over the years. Now, these adventures started off as crude blog posts and journal entries, and so I've had to kind of go through over the past year and not just assimilate and synthesize all that, but to clean it up and put it together in one final resting place that I can then publish in a book format. Now, I decided at some point that I was going to self-publish, thinking that it would be this relatively straightforward process. But I've learned quite a bit over the year, and this is why I wanted to make this video. Now, the first thing I want to say is I do feel like I have a decent proficiency when it comes to writing. And I don't say that to sound like I'm bragging or to sound cocky at all. I say that because my profession is I am an academic and a scientist. So I have written dozens of manuscripts that have been published in scientific journals. And here's the thing, you have help along the way, okay? So you will put together the draft of your manuscript for the first science journal, and you'll go through it dozens of times yourself, editing it. And you'll get to a point where you're like, this is perfect. It can't possibly get any better. This should be accepted without any revisions. And then you send it to your co-authors. And within a week or two, you get back hundreds of comments and edits and rearranging of things and deleting of entire paragraphs. And you're like, oh my gosh, I thought it was perfect. And you realize that there's a lot that you still need to fix. And so you spend a month or two going through all those comments and edits. And what ultimately comes out of it is a better paper. And then you realize, like, wow, that first draft really wasn't that good at all. Or it was good, but it wasn't great. And so now you've got this paper that not only you have cleaned up, but that all of your co-authors have cleaned up. So you've got 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 really smart people all helping you present the best possible version of your paper. But then you submit it to a journal. And the first thing the journal does is they assign you 2 or 3 peer reviewers. And those peer reviewers, who are also experts in your field, have one purpose, and that purpose is to go through your paper and find every possible flaw with it and pick it apart as much as they possibly can. And so you will ultimately get back reviews from your peers that are just scathing and that say, I want to see more modeling, or I want to see this, or you can't say this without this type of uncertainty. You have to be very clear in your data presentation. And their job is to make sure that you are presenting data that are factual and you are properly representing the uncertainties and that you are not saying anything that is not backed by the science. In the end, you now have a paper that's not only been reviewed by all your co-authors, but it's been reviewed by 2 or 3 peer reviewers. But even then, when all that's done and the paper is accepted, it goes through what's called a proofing process. And so you send that paper off to the journal, and it's assigned to internal editors and proofers, and they go through your paper word by word, character by character, punctuation by punctuation, and fix all of the weird little minutia rules that you've broken. That, oh, you were supposed to use a semicolon here instead of a colon, and you put 2 spaces after that period instead of 1, and you need to have a proper indent here, and you need, your 3rd citation in your bibliography didn't have this 1 number italicized, and it's ridiculous. But the thing about it is, I never have to think about that stuff. I do the best I can with the grammar and the structure, knowing that at some point, if the paper gets accepted, the proofers are going to fix all that, right? And it's great because you don't have to think about that stuff you learned in like 7th grade about where to put the punctuation when there's quotations and, you know, the rules, the 3 rules of when to use a semicolon and all these ridiculous things. So where am I going with all this? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you are thinking of self-publishing, like I am, you don't get all of these wonderful resources that you get when you are submitting to a journal. Now, I could certainly go out and spend the $2,000 to hire a consultant to proofread my paper, or I could beg and plead with family members to read the 75,000 words of my manuscript. But if you don't have that and you are left to your own, I highly recommend that you download the accepted style guides. These are the guides that are going to go through and they are going to explain every tiny rule. And if you're like me and you've got a little bit of that left brain engineer OCD in you and you want your paper to be the best version of the paper that it can be, or your book or your manuscript, it's important that you know the rules. And I cannot tell you how many of these rules I've forgotten, right? There's crazy, like the rules on commas and on when to use italics versus quotations, and how numbers under 20 you're supposed to write out, but numbers over 20 you're supposed to put the number, unless it's a temperature or a mileage. Like crazy, weird minutia. And sure, you could just ignore all of it and publish it anyway. That's the beauty of self-publishing. But if you want it to be right, if you want it to be following what other publishing companies follow, it's worth it to read the style guides, because every single time I go back through my 200 pages, I find something else that I've missed, or I've used incorrectly, or I've put 2 spaces after a period instead of 1, even though that's how I learned to do it in typing when I was in 7th grade. All these things. I mean, I have a checklist right now on my computer that says, go through and check each instance of the word geographic versus geographical, because those 2 words actually have very distinct differences. Look for instances of scare quotes. Check punctuation inside quotation marks. Hyphenate months. So if I say late September, do you hyphenate that? What if you have double adjectives at the end of a sentence? Are you supposed to hyphenate all double adjectives? Are you allowed to use split infinitives, or is that an antiquated thing? To boldly go, that's a no-no apparently. You can't say that. That's a split infinitive. So there's all of these things. Do you capitalize weekdays? What about months? What about seasons? So my point is, there are a lot of weird rules that proofreaders and editors look for that you probably won't, like I haven't. And so about 2 weeks ago, I thought I was done with my collection. I mean, I had gone through it probably 3 or 4 times and was content and was like ready to submit it. And then I started going through these style guides and realized I may have so many more mistakes, and I would have been absolutely horrified and embarrassed had I submitted this, even though on the surface it looks perfectly fine. I mean, I've even had family members read it and say, "Oh, this looks great. I don't see any problems with it." So that's my advice to all of you. If you're thinking about self-publishing, just spend some time with the style guides and then just take breaks from it. Walk away from your manuscript for a couple days or even a week. Clear your head and then come back to it with fresh eyes, because you'll be amazed at how many things you find. And then if you can convince somebody to help you proofread it, by all means, offer to buy him a pizza or take him out for dinner. Or if you're like me, I'm this close to just, paying a consultant to proof my manuscript, even though it would cost over $1,000 to do that. That's a lot of money to spend on something that's kind of just a passion project hobby. Know that it's a long process, and give yourself plenty of time to walk away and come back and breathe and count to 10. And you're going to be rereading your chapters so many times that words will lose their meaning. It's just, it's like I have edited sentences back so many times that they're now back to the way they were 25 revisions ago. So it's just like, what am I even doing? I'm just going in circles now. So That's when you know you're close. Anyway, that's it, guys. Take care. I promise this is the only video like this. I'll see you in the next video. And yeah, stay safe out there.